Now that we know a little bit about how they arrive on the front lines, let's talk about the soldiers that occupy the Hellpods and defend the liberty of Super Earth on the front lines. The Helldivers. This is how Super Earth currently describes Helldivers. Quote, "Our pride, the Helldivers are the scalpel of the military might of Super Earth. Young men and women are drafted from the regular Army Corps to do their part in the unrestful galaxy that is set on destroying Super Earth." End quote. But if we dig further back in the history of Super Earth, Helldivers might have begun their service not as an official part of the Super Earth armed forces, but rather as a sort of paramilitary group that was sent in to take care of issues in the gray zone. We know that the first use of Hellpods was to put down an insurrection at Northman's Creek, but the Helldivers existed before the use of the Hellpods. We get a small tidbit of lore from the description of a certain class of Helldiver, the Defender. Quote, "Helldiver Defenders are the immovable objects of humanity, capable of holding their ground in any situation. They have a bulkier look and a helmet reminiscent of the old knights of Old Earth, and used to double as riot police before humanity unified properly." End quote. What isn't clear is whether the armor itself is the component that is repurposed from riot police, or if the Defender class Helldiver was a group of individuals that used to work specifically as riot police. The other component to discuss here is about the capabilities of the Helldivers. They're referred to by Super Earth as the scalpel of the military. But is that really the case? Despite this honorific, it's possible that this rhetoric is simply to inspire more Helldivers to join, and that their only purpose in the war effort is to be cannon fodder. We know that from the CEO of Arrowhead Games, quote, "They are real people with real families that are oh so proud of their baby joining the elite and the invincible hero unit to do the right thing and fight for democracy." End quote. But he's also pretty forthright when telling us, quote, "The fact that they get into a freezer to be thawed is not disclosed, nor that their life expectancy is 2 minutes." End quote. So, the idea that they're this mystical class of highly elite, highly trained soldiers is a bit overstated, to say the least. The fact that is all the more highlighted by the training that they get before being deployed on the front lines. This does also seem to dispel the fan theory that Helldivers are clones. They do seem to be real people, dedicating their lives to the glory and prosperity of Super Earth. So, there we have the first level of the iceberg. For the most part, these are pretty common ideas and theories, but to get into the more conspiracy, cyborgs created automatons. Up first, who are the automatons and where do they come from? Who created them, and where do their loyalties lie? When we pick up the story in Helldivers 2, the automatons are a bit of a mystery. In reality, their creation is a bit of an open secret. I suppose that in the in-game lore, if you were actually a Helldiver, the Super Earth Federation would not want you knowing anything about where the automatons came from, only that they're bad. The reason for this is it's all but explicitly stated that the automatons are the creation of the cyborgs, a group that, again, was supposed to be democratized after the First Galactic War. The cyborgs are not supposed to be a threat to Super Earth anymore, so they're going to try their hardest to hide the truth until it can't be hidden anymore. Let's start with some of the clues. I'm using the word clue loosely because, again, these are pretty obvious references. The insignia of the automatons is that of a star inside a cog, but that star itself is identical to the insignia of the cyborgs. The second piece of evidence comes from a Twitter thread that was posted by the official Helldivers profile in 2021, written entirely in some kind of binary code. MDHX__ claims to have cracked that code. Quote, "This is an 8-bit ASCII inverse cipher, then a 14-letter Caesar shift cipher. This is the text. We, the collective from Cyberstan, unanimously assert our independence from Super Earth. We have the right to defend our home from the brainwashed Helldivers. Our children, the automaton, will not suffer as we have under the oppression of Super Earth." End quote. There really isn't any more evidence needed. This makes it pretty clear that not only are the automatons created by the cyborgs, but that there is some sort of alliance brewing. I have no doubt that once the Helldivers reach Cyberstan, they will find a coalition made up of both automatons and their cyborg parents. But as one final Easter egg, when a Helldiver sneaks up on a group of automatons patrolling, you will often hear them chanting a marching cadence, which makes it pretty clear that their objective is liberating Cyberstan and moving on to what they call a new dawn, whatever that means. Here, listen in. So, I, for one, cannot wait to see what happens when the Helldivers make it back to Cyberstan. Speaking of which, let's talk about it. The history and purpose of Cyberstan. Cyberstan is a cold and desolate place, located in the Valdis sector of the galaxy, northwest of Super-Earth. I guess there isn't really north or west. I don't know. Up and to the left of Super-Earth. Cyberstan is described as, quote, a place with a long history of treachery, the stronghold of the cyborgs, and later, their prison. Perhaps it is no accident that this world has become our target once again. End quote. So, one source describes it as a stronghold of cyborgs, while others describe it as their homeworld. It's a small distinction, but I think there's some truth hidden in there. You see, the cyborgs were human. They were just humans that slowly augmented themselves more and more, to the point where over a century, they became a different species. Look, would a species actually diverge over 100 years? Probably not. And that might be even more propaganda at play. It's possible that cyborgs are still more human than Super-Earth would like to admit. And that's because they pose an existential threat to the system of managed democracy. So, with that in mind, let's look again at Cyberstan. In all likelihood, it's not the homeworld of the cyborgs, but rather a planet they were forced to flee to after being expelled at Northman's Creek. As a reminder, they were expelled by the Helldivers in the First Great War, long before the events of the First Galactic War, and way longer before the events of the Second Galactic War. Once the First Galactic War arrives at their doorstep, they're once again defeated by the Super-Earth armed forces and democratized by force. Super-Earth sent tactical command to the planet to keep the peace and run governmental positions, while a government contractor, the Super-Earth Construction Company, came in to manage the extraction of resources. Despite this background information, it's not clear what Cyberstan looks like at the start of the Second Galactic War. We know that Super-Earth stayed for at least 5 years following the conclusion of the First War, but they may have left the planet to fend for itself after that period of time. If that's the case, the cyborgs on that planet have had 95 years to develop and plan for their liberation, possibly at the hands of the automatons. The part of the game that I find so intriguing is that the story is unfolding around the players. On April 8th, 2024, in the real-world time, Super-Earth announced that the Helldivers had eradicated the automaton threat, only to be proven wrong several days later when a new incursion of the bots appeared centered around Cyberstan, a planet that no one has seen in close to a century. So, while players are working their way towards Cyberstan, no one knows what awaits them there. And by the time I post this video, it's possible that the Helldivers have battled all the way there. So, is Cyberstan a desolate wasteland populated by enslaved cyborgs? Or has it become a stronghold and political center for a population of cyborgs that have been biding their time in order to join forces with the automatons? Only time will tell.